Something very interesting happened when I got diagnosed with autism. I got diagnosed late. I was 35. And where it should have been a moment of lucid clarity, it was a moment almost instantly that of uh, psychological abuse for being autistic, right? You're an embarrassment to me and my family. I don't know why you people are around and you should die. But after hearing for almost 3 years that I was nothing more than a burden and an embarrassment because of my diagnosis, um, I learned to believe it. I I'm a two-time survivor of. I tried to listen twice, and thank God I failed.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about ruin and resurrection. I'm delighted to welcome Christopher Carazas. Christopher is a survivor, storyteller, and global development and social impact leader. You can reach Christopher at his website, chriscarazas.com, and I'll include that link in the show notes. Welcome, Chris. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Thanks for having me.
I am delighted for this conversation. And I have not yet read your book, but even in the interactions that we've had, your writing is lyrical and quite beautiful. And there are some phrases that have just been kind of running through my head. And I would love to kind of touch on some of those. One of them is that you talk about dealing with invisible scars. So is it okay if we start with your story and some of your invisible scars?
Oh, I got many. um, I think I think the big one is that of uh, psychological abuse for being autistic, right? Um, and the lie of worthlessness that brought. And something very interesting happened when I got diagnosed with autism. I got diagnosed late. I was 35, so about 5 years ago. And where it should have been a moment of lucid clarity, it was a moment almost instantly. Well, you're an embarrassment. Uh, why is my daughter married to someone on the spectrum? Yeah, you're an embarrassment to me and my family. Um, I don't know why you people are around and you should die. And um, it became a daily occurrence from her mom and my wife at the time. Um, After hearing for almost 3 years that I was nothing more than a burden and an embarrassment because of my diagnosis, um, I learned to believe it. I I'm a two-time survivor of. I tried to listen twice, and thank God I failed. And after the second attempt, it I don't know what prompted me to tell my sister my story. I think part of it was me wanting to fight and stay. But like how could I stay and how could I make that argument when I really believed that narrative that I was indeed worthless, that I was just a burden. And I mean, my sense of self got eroded and destroyed all because of a single diagnosis that should have been embraced.
Chris, I am so sorry. That should never have been. And I apologize that you had to deal with that. I think it is one of the most common thoughts and feelings that go through our heads that I'm not good enough. I am worthless. I am unlovable. Those thoughts and those feelings just run through our minds, and we can be our own worst critic. And you had the unfortunate experience of hearing that in stereo, hearing it from the outside, as well as that common thought from the inside. And those beliefs turn into almost our identity. This is what I am. I am worthless. That's what I am. That is my definition. That is my description. That is what I am. I am not good enough. And those thoughts and those feelings, you don't deserve this space that you take up on this planet. And to hear that from the outside would be excruciating, especially since for most of us, that thought and those feelings resonate on the inside, and that magnification. And you said this in a very discreet way, but what I'm assuming is that you attempted suicide twice. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it was. Um, I think it was, and that's why I said like I'm glad I failed at that because um, it means it implies I'm still here. Spoiler alert, like spoiler alert, I'm here. I'm in a much better space after letting my sister in on that dark secret and her intervention of taking me out of that. She's told me pack a bag, pack up your dog. I'll be there in the morning. So she drove from from here, Massachusetts to Maryland to get me and brought me back home. Right. Um, and it, if it wasn't for that, I'm not sure I would still be here. And it took a lot to get the help I needed to deprogram myself out of that lie that I was being fed, that I was worthless, that um, I was a burden, right? And I mean, I make no, there is no shame in getting that help you need if it means staying. Uh, like I am not ashamed to admit that I needed help because without that, I wouldn't have a story to share. And I wanted my story to help one person. And I had an interaction about a month ago that became a defibrillator to my soul. Um, I was talking to two. I call them young kids, but they're in their 20s. Um, I was I was pre-signing some books at a coffee shop. The coffee shop where I wrote my book. I was with Shadow. They wanted to say hi to my dog Shadow first, and they noticed I was writing a book or signing my book. They asked me about it. I was telling them, and there was a lady that overheard and shyly walked up to us and said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I bought your book a month ago here." And she turned to the kids and said, "Hey, this book helped me stay, and I think you should read this." And that moment shocked me because that my story was no longer my story anymore. It was me and that lady's story. And how often does one get to see the impact that that's been my mission now? It's like just helping one person, one person decide to stay. And not very many people get that benefit.
To be able to know that what they did and what they're doing, their efforts make a difference.
Right.
Well, I'm grateful that you decided to stay and that your mission now is to help other people to make the decision to stay. That is so important. And I'm very grateful that you use the word lie now to describe the messages that were just bombarding you for so long. And I'm so sorry. When we think of abuse, abuse comes in many forms. And in a marriage situation, we often think of abuse as physical. But it is that emotional, that psychological warfare that really damages us deep. I don't know if you ever heard when you were little, there used to be a saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And the truth is, it's quite the opposite. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but it's the names and the cruelty that comes from words that cause the deepest invisible scars, scars that can last us a lifetime unless we choose to recognize that they are lies and that it's okay to just brush those off and to move on. Now, these two huge things, abuse, a diagnosis of autism, are not the only things. You dealt with some struggles growing up with going back and forth. Were you born in Paraguay or?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was born in Paraguay. I don't really. Well, my mom was in the Peace Corps. I really don't remember Paraguay because I left when I was 2. But ended up growing up overseas. I lived in, places like Ecuador, Bolivia, Ghana. Uh, I've, as an adult, I lived in Switzerland, Oman, Madagascar. Um, yeah, so I've lived in a lot of different places.
So, in one sense, that is fantastic. You have an incredible, diverse experience. But it sounds like it created a feeling of, I'm not sure where I belong. I'm not sure where I fit in. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, it's there's a term for us, um, the same group of people that are like me. We're called third culture kids, where we've grown up in like perpetual purgatory because, like, my mom's American. I didn't grow up in the country of her origin. I didn't even grow up in my country of origin. I grew up in the world, and like you said, there's a lot of great things that came out of it. I now speak 5 languages fluently, and um, it on one hand it makes me more adaptable, and I got to learn about different cultures. That's great, but I always felt this sense of unrootedness. I like I'm yeah, my passport says I'm American, but I don't feel American. Like, what am I? And it's something I always struggled with, is like, how do I identify? Like, when people ask me, I hate the question, um, where are you from? Because I don't know how to answer them. I don't know where I'm from.
Fascinating. So, the question of where am I from? Where are you from? Which is such an innocent question, makes you feel a little displaced, like I'm not sure what the correct answer is.
Yeah, so I usually, retort back with something funny, like, how long you got? Because there's an easy answer and there's a complicated answer. Which one do you want? And that kind of takes people back, and they're like, okay, let's start with the easy one first. And I said, well, I'm from Massachusetts. And they're like, okay, that sounds easy enough. Let's hear the complicated. And then I tell them, all the places I've lived and how I grew up. They're like, oh. The next question is like, oh, were you a military brat? You know, that's the, and then it's like, no, I'm a nonprofit brat, which,
Okay. Wow. Well, I think being able to speak 5 languages is pretty dang awesome. So if you can just reconcile yourself that I am a citizen of the world, I am a human being, and I am a child of God, and I matter, and where I'm from is here, there, and all over.
yeah. And for me, like the question is only natural. Like, to some people, I have an accent, so they ask me, like, where are you from? And I'm like, I, what, don't I sound American enough to you? That's the joking answer that comes out of my. I don't get like triggered per se. It's just like, I just don't like it because it's just so complicated, right? Um, and it's a common thing. It's a common thing for people that grow up like me. It's like, yeah, that we all hate that question. I thought I was the only one, and so
Fascinating.
yeah.
Something I never had considered. Okay. Well, that's something, isn't it? You have
Yeah,
uh, a unique, although it's not completely unique because there are others who feel the same way, but it's not standard or traditional. And sometimes we think if we're not just like everybody else, there's something wrong with us. And that's not true. We're all unique. Whether we're stay in one place or whether we move around, we each have something unique about our personality or our experience. And those things are good. That means we have something special to contribute to the world. And so I'm glad that you're still here. Now, I wanted to ask, there were another couple of phrases here that just made me think. And another one was masking in silence. Do you want to talk about that? I know that I've had personal experience with that. Do you want to share some of yours?
absolutely. So, and I think this ties into the question that came before this. Um, I didn't know I was autistic till I was 35, right? And not only did I grow up overseas in different environments, I didn't really understand what was going on with me. I knew something was different about me because if my routine or my sense of routine became disrupted, I I hated it. I like you may have as well told me the world was ending, right? Or why I don't like physical contact. I don't like to be hugged. I don't like people touching me, especially people I don't know. And I thought that was really weird. Um, and why I didn't understand jokes, at least the first go around, people had to like explain it to me. But rather than asking, I became like super embarrassed to ask. So I started to learn on my own and learn by observation and kind of like repress those differences and appear to be normal in air quotes, right? And it's like so I would study people. I would study what the normal people would do, and the normal people do this. No, normal people tell jokes and they smile when someone says this, and they do small talk. I don't do small talk, but fine. Like, and I had to like get really good at small talk, um, and let the environmental sensitivities that I had slide because the normal people that weren't bothered by the lights or the sound of a hair dryer in the bathroom or so I learned to pass off as the rest of the world while repressing like all the oddities I felt inside me, right? And so I like I would practice when I moved back to the States in '97. Like I would even sit and practice the slang words that kids were using, like oh that's wicked good, and I never understood that because like wicked and good are polar opposites. So how can something be wicked good? And um, so I did everything in my power to come across as everyone else, um, and I didn't have the word for masking until I got diagnosed with autism, right? By the time I got diagnosed, I had been really good at masking. Like it's like instant translation from like what I was feeling in here to what the world, uh, to the public persona that people would see as someone very, very well spoken, very well put together, very with it. And when I learned about masking after I got diagnosed, I was like, well, crap, this is what I've been doing this whole my whole life, uh, and then I understood why I was so exhausted, and like no one knew because I was ashamed of telling people I didn't understand certain things or was uncomfortable with being hugged or even shaking hands or making eye contact, and um, so it was a very lonely place for a long time to be in.
Thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that because now you're not being invisible, you're being authentic and saying, these are the struggles and the challenges that I've had. And you've mentioned many times about normal. And there's another word for that, and it's neurotypical. That almost makes it sound like, you guys have a diagnosis too. You are neurotypical and I'm
Yeah.
neurodivergent. And it is okay to be different. And it is okay to need some extra help. For neurotypical people, I mean, every single person, we have to learn things. Most of us go to school so that we can learn how to read, we can learn how to write, we can learn how to do math, we learn history. Everyone needs to learn these things and these skills. But when you're neurodivergent, there's a whole other skill set that comes naturally to neurotypical people. It comes so naturally that we don't teach it in school. We figure that people just learn it on their own and they understand. And for neurotypical people, they do. It comes. And it's interesting, you said, I'm watching and I'm copying. And that's really the same thing that neurotypical people are doing. It just comes so easy, you don't even realize it. I think it is absolutely okay to learn how to behave in public. And I think we can do it in a way that is not masking or fake. I think it's not unlike learning another language. I think, okay, this is how I'm able to communicate with other people with my words, with my body language. It is a skill set. And it's a skill set that for people who are neurodivergent does not come naturally. You have to learn it. And it can be learned. And I'm proud of you for being able to learn that skill set. And I hope that you feel like we can have a conversation and um, and as you use those skills, it doesn't feel like I'm pretending. It's just I've learned a skill so that we can communicate a little easier. And I'm proud of you for learning that skill set.
Well, thank you. As you were talking, you reminded me of something. I had a conversation with my mom last summer about masking, and she asked me, like, isn't masking uh, like almost the same thing as lying or being inauthentic? And that kind of took me aback a little bit because it made me reflect on, like, overall my authenticity, right, and how I was coming across. And on one hand, it's it's a difficult question to answer because if I didn't mask, then I think that, or my thought process is, I don't think I would have gotten uh, to where I've been in life, but also I think I would have pushed a lot of people away. Case in point, um, my initial reaction to anything is to be unemotional and direct as possible. Um, and that can come across as very abrasive and and a jerk, right? I don't intend it to be that way, right? It's just it's the most streamlined way. You ask me a question, I will. It's the path of least resistance, and that's what I want to give you, right? And so I made a deal with my mom. I said, like, I was like, hey, this is why, like, this, or verbal communication. This is why I'm asked because people can misconstrue as me being a jerk. And she's like, well, why don't you give it a try with me? It didn't last 2 hours. It it it, it was. I think at one point my mom said, "Why are you being such a pretentious a-hole?" And I was like, "See, this is the precise reason why, like, I need to learn how to mask because by masking it in sense, I'm telling you what I'm thinking, what I want to tell you, but in a more watered down version that's more socially acceptable
Mm.
to the rest of the world, right? And if I don't do it this way, if I don't water it down, if I don't filter it, then I get, well, that guy's a pretentious a hole. He's a jerk, and it's like it's not the intent. It's more of like it just is, right? Um, so it's like a good case in point to tell my mom, like, hey, like, it's not that I'm living inauthentically. It's just what makes me socially acceptable, so to speak.
Okay. I am loving this conversation because this is so important. The distinctions here are so subtle. We're doing the same things, but with a different motivation. In one way, and we can use the word masking either way, but I'm going to change it. To me, masking is where I feel like I'm an imposter. I am behaving in a way, it's not me. It's not the real me. I'm doing this because I am not good enough. And so I have to put
Mhm.
on a mask. I got to pretend to be someone else so that you will like me. Okay, now I'm going to pull it to the other side. We're learning social skills. We are gaining, um, we're gaining a skill set that does not come naturally. And so I can do the same things. It's me. I know who I am, but I'm learning a skill set so that I can interact with other people. It's the real me. It's just a disciplined version of myself. And I think that that is a beautiful, good thing. Would be, again, you speak 5 languages. If I am in a room, well, I don't speak 5 languages, but let's pretend that I spoke some other, and I am speaking English and everyone around me is speaking Spanish. I can't understand. I can't communicate. But if I can learn the language that they are speaking, then I can understand and I can be able to make my wants and needs known as well. It's still me. I'm not pretending to be someone else. I'm learning a shared language. And so as we talk about masking and you talk about this is what I did and it worked, it kind of feels to me like that saying of fake it till you make it. It's like I learned this skill set because at the time I felt like if I didn't learn this skill set, I would be rejected. And that may or may not have been true because not everybody is kind and compassionate. But you learned a skill set and now you own it.
At the same time, I feel like an imposter because I would have to do things I necessarily hated. Like I don't want to shake someone's hand and smile politely, say, "Hey, nice to meet you." Right? Like I I don't want you to touch me. Right? I don't want. So like, but it's important when you go in for an interview, you have to go shake someone's hand and smile and say, "Hey, nice to meet you." It's and so in that sense, that's where I felt like an imposter, right? Because
Absolutely.
I'm I'm doing things that I don't want to
Uncomfortable.
do, and I have to like not do me for the benefit of what is overall socially acceptable, right? Or how do I keep it together when the sound of the hair dryer or hand dryer in a bathroom is going off, and I like it rather than it just sounding like a hair dryer. It sounds like you know that cartoon with Bugs Bunny with they hit the Kong and then they just shake. Uh, it's kind of like that's what tends to happen to me with loud noises like that. And it's like, how do I like suppress that and not show it and make sure that so that I don't get judged by people as someone who's crazy. Um, so uh, so in that sense, like it, there is that spectrum of masking for me where it's I do things in a more watered down way, like my communication, like saying what I want to say, but very filtered, or doing things I may not necessarily like to do just for people so I can pass off as the rest of the world. So it's kind of a weird characteristic and uh, weird way of navigating the world. And I'm not the only. I've talked to fellow people on the spectrum, and they're like, "Yeah, me too, me too, me too." I'm like, "Okay, so I'm not the only one." Phew.
Right. You mentioned earlier that it's exhausting. And I hope that as you're working with people and there's a difference between, as I mentioned, a skill set like watering things down versus truly being uncomfortable. And I would hope that at some point, and you kind of have to gauge the circumstance, you can say, I'm not a hugger. or I, I prefer not to shake hands, or that you can gently, as you put it, in a watered down way, be able to have a win-win situation because people have expectations and you don't want to meet them, but they don't naturally understand why. So if you can kind of in a gentle way say, I'm not a hugger, or I don't feel comfortable with this. And so they can change their expectation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I, I
Yeah.
I can feel that that would be exhausting.
Or like for a long time, like I just when it came to like the whole, even in high school, like people wanted to like my friends from the opposite sex were like, "Hey, Chris, how you doing?" And they wanted to give me a hug. I'd be like, I would cringe and or my friends would like fist bump me, and then like I was like, okay, so I'd go through the motions, but only because I thought it was going to be more exhausting to tell them, hey, I for whatever reason I don't like to get hugged or fist bump or handshake, and it comes at like the way my mind works. It's like, oh, are they gonna think I'm weird now? Uh, and that's the weird thing about masking. It's always that internal conversation um, that I have. I call it my dark passenger, right? Um, and it's that internal conversation of like what I want, what my autistic brain wants versus what the what the neurotypical expectation of me is for at that moment. And it's the neurotypical standard always trumped my what I felt inside, right? And
Right. And I think in high school, that does for everybody. So it depends on the circumstance, but gosh, I hope you have a circle of friends or family or somebody that you can truly let down your guard and feel comfortable as you.
we're getting there. It's been a fun time trying to rebuild my network. I mean, I left everything. I left everything behind after I left my wife. Like, um, so I have a pickleball crew now that I play pickleball with every day. Well, I was playing every day in the summer, and they know I have autism, and they roast me anyway. Um, and my brother lives next door, and my sister lives a mile from me, so it's kind of like, and I'm reconnecting with my old high school friends, one person at a time, and so yeah, it's like it's a, it's been fun trying to rebuild and reconnect and resurface and as me and start reclaiming myself one day at a time.
I'm so glad you're reclaiming yourself. There's a line in the movie from The Greatest Showman where she said, "You don't need everyone to love you, just a few good people." So I'm grateful that you have a growing support group because you deserve it. Now, is there anything else you want to make sure we cover before we close today? The name of your book is Now That I'm Still Here, correct? And where can they find that?
Oh, pretty much everywhere books are wherever books are sold. Like it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Uh, you can get it at Walmart, Target, pretty much anywhere. Even I think libraries have it now too. I don't know. Anyway, they can find it on my website too, chriscarazas.com. I have a companion Substack that goes with um, with the book because the way I wrote it was very nonlinear, and the Substack kind of like weaves a thread through all of it, so that it makes sense, so that it frames the timeline in a more structured way, um, and the nonlinearity of the book was done on purpose because that's how memory often tends to work after surviving trauma. And anyway, so Substack is another place they could find me. It's substack.com/@ccarazas.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for visiting with me today, Chris.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me, and thanks for reaching out.
In closing, I'd like to share a quote by Octavia Butler. She said, "In order to rise from its own ashes, a phoenix must first burn." Today, I invite our listeners who have been burned to rise from the ashes. See you next time on Linda's Corner. Thanks for tuning in to Linda's Corner podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends to help us inspire even more listeners. Be sure to visit hopeforhealingfoundation.org for free and affordable resources to help you overcome life's challenges. And explore healingbreathworkdetox.com, where you'll find transformative tools for deep inner healing and lasting change. Also, don't forget to check out my books, Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. Your journey to hope, healing, and happiness starts here.